Hello and a warm welcome to this tech talk about a Focusbug license integration into the Hi-5 hand unit. My name is Tobias. I'm product manager for ARRI electronic control systems, and with me is Laird Pierce, designer and director from Focusbug. Hello, Laird.
Hello.
So, just to give a little background story, the Focusbug system is out there since around 2018. It's grabbing a lot of attention. It was used on small productions like music videos, but also on really huge award-winning films. What do you think is the beauty of integrating your system into the Hi-5 hand unit?
Well, I think obviously people like both systems, and with this new SUP2 for the Hi-5, I think what we've done is given people more choices, especially when it comes to the Focusbug license. And more choices provides an opportunity for first ACs to essentially tailor the working of the system to their preferences, and that just improves workflow.
Yeah, I think everybody loves choices.
They do.
And you know what? Before talking here endlessly, let's head over and show the guys how we set up everything for today's Tech Talk.
Sounds good.
Very good. So for this Tech Talk, we decided to use the Alexa 35 camera. We use our CForce Mini F motor for the focus. The CForce Mini F is our fastest motor, and we get the best results for focus tracking with it. We use a CForce Mini motor to connect the ARRIs. And we use our radio interface adapter Rio1 to connect with the orange-coded radio modules, the RF2400, to our Hi-5 hand unit. The RF2400 radio modules, they just give you this additional signal strength and peace of mind when working with it on set. So it's really cool if you can use them. For the Alexa 35, you need to connect the cam port of the Rio1 with the cam to L-bus cable either to the mount or to the L-bus on the body. In case we would use an Alexa Mini LF camera, you need to have the cam to EXT cable and connect to the XT port on the rear of the camera. In addition, the last connection is the serial port. You need to have the Y cable from Focusbug. So this cable is available from Focusbug. It's either a Y cable with a 4-pin LEMO connector. The 4-pin LEMO is the connector for the Rio1 as well as for the serial port on the Alexa 35 body. There is another option with a 7-pin Fisher connector. The 7-pin Fisher is to connect to the LQ1. It is important to notice that for the time being, the Rio1 is the only motor controller from ARRI which is capable of the ARRI high-speed protocol, which is necessary in order for the license to work. So we are working on an update on the Alexa 35 serial port as well as on the LQ1, and we will bring this update for the LQ1 later this year. When everything is set up properly, there's one important last thing to do. You need to access the menu on the Rio1 by pressing the button, scroll down to the serial mode, and make sure that you have selected Focusbug as a serial protocol, because this then enables the ARRI high-speed protocol, which is necessary for the license. And then I would say, Laird, let's give a short introduction how you set up the Focusbug devices on the camera.
Sounds good. It's always exciting to see Focusbug on the Rio1. So what we've got here in the way of Cine-RT components on the camera are, as Tobias said, the base sensor and a high-bright remote LED display. In reality, you only need the one unit on the camera, and that's because we built the main processor into the base sensor, so you don't require another component on the camera. What we've done is set the base as low as we can to the film plane to mitigate any vertical offset, and we've set a film plane offset from the film plane to the back of the unit. Now the high bright we've chosen to put on the camera, but you can also keep a high bright at your focus station, and you can chain multiple high brights if you want. So you can give a high bright to dolly grip or a Technocrane boom operator or a VFX supervisor, anybody else who could benefit by having that distance data. Now, as Tobias said, we're sending serial data into the Rio1. So the first thing you need to do with the system to ensure that you have it is select the right serial output. And to do that, you go into Settings, select Serial Out, and you can see right now we've got ARRI Classic. And ARRI Classic is used to send data at the moment directly into the Alexa 35, or if you're using an L-Cube. But in this case, we're going to switch to ARRI High-Speed. And the great thing about ARRI High-Speed is it's 12 times as fast as ARRI Classic.
Everybody likes fast.
Everybody likes fast. So now that we're sending ARRI High-Speed, you're up.
Yeah, I think it's time to show what features you can actually have in the Hi-5 hand unit with the license on. So when you've set up everything correctly, so you have the correct serial protocol in the rear one, you've chosen ARRI High-Speed in the Synergy handset, the last thing missing is the Focusbug license in the Hi-5. You can download the Focusbug license in our license shop, and as soon as you install it, you will see that you have the new entrance in the menu called Focusbug. And this is the menu where you can set up the most important features, and we discussed a lot about it. So we really think that this menu gives you the most important choices.
Exactly. It's the most commonly used tools and settings, stuff you'd use, every day, all the time. And then we've left those sort of advanced settings in the handset, along with the ultrasonic tape measure. And we'll get to that later.
Sure. So just very briefly run through the options you have in the handset. So you can change the field of view. You can toggle through the sources. So what sources options do we have here?
Well, we've got the rangefinder, so that's good to 40 feet. And then we have up to 4 bugs that we can monitor simultaneously. So it's this little bug ultrasonic transmitter as your second source, or third source, or fourth source. Yeah.
So at the moment you see grayed out, but you also have the option to turn on and off 2 times view, so you can have up to 2 active sources actually with your system, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
I think a very important option, especially if you do a lot of lens changes, you can set the film plane offset directly with the Hi-5 hand unit. So especially then if you change the position of the horns, you can tune in the new offsets directly with the Hi-5. You can work with the sensitivity of the horns, and also decided to put in some of the commonly used features, things like limits, lockout, crossover distance. We will show this later in more detail, no?
Yeah.
And then you can turn on and off the 2 times view and use sync mode. So sync mode alert, how are people using sync mode?
Well, if you have 2 Cine-RTs working together in the same acoustic space, like in the same studio, you want to mitigate any chance of having ultrasonic crosstalk. So this just means that 2 Cine-RTs can work together in sync mode to each have their own window when they send and receive pulses, so they don't walk on each other. There's no interference.
So this menu is really to set up the Focusbug system, but to bring all the features to a working level, we're pretty sure you will use the user buttons, and this is what we'll show next to you. So next we're going to show you the user button. There's really a lot of new things going on with Hi-5 firmware 2.0 with user buttons. Most of it is explained by Sean Dooley in the Tech Talk already, but today we're really going to show you how we think you would set up the user button, your customizable homepage with the use of Cine-RT. In order to access the user buttons, so it's important we have 9 user buttons now, the 3 here, plus 6 customizable user buttons on the display buttons. You can access or change the function of a user button via the shortcut pressing Func and the user button, or you can simply go into the Hi-5 menu and select the user button. So we do this now and go into changing 1 user button, and because we added so many new user button and features in firmware 2.0, we also decided we need to categorize them. So we added now the categories, and you can find all the Focusbug user buttons under the category distance. First thing you will notice at top, you can have now 2 options for focus tracking. It's press and toggle. Press means it's the one as it was before, you need to press and hold it. But we got a lot of requests from you guys to also have focus tracking toggle, which means you just press the button once to go into focus tracking and press another time to deactivate focus tracking.
Which is great because if you need to, say during a setup, you can activate or toggle on focus tracking. You can go build another camera and come back, and your operator doesn't need to reach for the focus knob, or he's got live data working for him.
So 2 times view turns on and off 2 times view. And then there is the option for 2 times view value toggle. So 2 times view says we have 2 active sources. And due to the limited space on the display, we will only have the value of 1 source shown in the display. And what this does is it just selects which of the sources, source 1 or source 2, is shown as a numerical value on the display.
Yeah, so you can have the rangefinder and 1 bug working, or two bugs working simultaneously, and you'll always see that information on the graphical display working at the same time.
Next is you can have the option to toggle through the field of view settings. Just go default, wide, and extra wide. And then we have limits. So this here you don't set limits, you really turn on and off the limit that you preset before. So it's really you push this button, you turn off or turn on and off the limit function. You can do this for limit, for lockout, and for crossover. And then we can play with all the sources. So we'll always change the active source that is shown also numerically on the display. We have the option to toggle through the sources, and you toggle through the sources that you actually set active on the Synergy handset. And I think many of you would also like that you can go directly to a source. So you can go directly, for example, to a field of view set at horn, or you can go to a bug that you've chosen before and go directly to bug number 1, 2, 3, or 4. And now we got to show you how we set up the main screen and what you can see actually on the main screen, what's going on there with all the Focusbug being connected and the license going on. Yeah, we can show this to you now. So we're going now to the new home screen. You can access this home screen by pressing the function button 4 times, and then you're on this new home screen, and you can set this really up to your liking. So maybe Laird, you can explain why we decided for this screen as today.
Yeah, well, the options we've put on today are, again, settings or functions that you'd commonly use. So in this case, we have calibrate, we have the lens button, and for Focusbug, we've set up the field of view toggle option. So that toggles between 14 degrees, 24 degrees, and 36 degrees field of view of your ultrasonic rangefinder. And then we have limits, lockout, and a source selection key. So you can toggle through your rangefinder to up to 4 bugs. And what's really cool about this is that we've named these buttons. So you don't need to be stuck with a default name. You can give each button, it's your own name.
What we call the customizable home screen. Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, and now we also show you a little bit what is actually ongoing on the screen, because there's a lot of information on this display. As you know, we have the focus value on the center of the display, and just above is the distance value of the active source. On the bottom of the display, you can see that we have at the moment as a source active, the horns in wide field of view mode, and we have the indicator of the distance as the green arrow on the right side. There are 2 really important updates in firmware 2.0. One was a request from you guys that you want to zoom out further on the display. So we now extended the opportunity to zoom out, so you can almost see the whole range of the lens scale just on this display. It makes it easier to follow through marks, also to follow the green arrow. And you can really tune this to your liking. Another feedback that we got actually a lot is that these green arrows, or the indicator, is really fast, it's really responsive, it's jumping a lot, it's difficult to follow. I mean, we discussed a lot about this in the past.
Yeah, well, I think the difference is that we're seeing the data coming into the Hi-5 system at 12 times the speed of what you normally would have seen with your WCU4. Also, the scale expands and conforms to whatever ring you're putting on there. So, people aren't used to viewing it that way. But in this case, because the graphical display is expandable or contractible, you can customize it to what you want to see, to the part of the range that you need to see. And
there's really an important additional feature here, because this green arrow is really now super responsive. We decided to use a dampening factor. We have a new feature called distance arrow damping. You can access this in the main menu, going to control setup. And on the very bottom, we have distance arrow damping. We can dampen between 0, which means no damping, up to 25, which means it's damped to a reasonable amount. We think further damping would really kill the shot. Usually I work with a damping about 10, 12, but you can really tune this to your liking. And this damping, what it does is really it only changes the feedback you get from the green arrow. So it's not fooling around with the response of the motors or from the whole distance readout. It's really only make it easier for you to follow the green arrow on the display if you're pulling focus. And I think that's what is ongoing on the display. So let's grab the stuff and prepare some setups.
Sounds good.
So now we just set up the cameras and we're ready to show you some of the use cases. For that, we brought our friend and focus puller ARRI. And let's do the first scene.
Let's do it.
So first thing that we're gonna show you are marks and tape measure. We have done some updates in the Hi-5 regarding marks. The first and important one is we are now distinguishing between internal marks and external marks. So internal marks are marks here that you set with the Hi-5 system, and external marks are marks that you set, for example, with the CineRT handset. We have gone away from the rainbow color in the marks, and if you go into the system, under marks, you now see that we have two options, internal marks and external marks. After firmware installation, you see the internal marks that are white and the external marks are green. Like you also get the color of the distance reader is a green color. You can change the color to any color that you like, or you can also set rainbow as the color for the Hi-5. Yeah, that's basically the updates for marks. And then now I think let's get into doing some marks.
Let's see it. Tobias, would you jump on that far mark? So first up, we're going to get 3 marks, and we're going to do that internally through the Hi-5. So let's get that far mark. Thanks, Arel. Hey, Tobias, would you move up? And we'll grab a second mark. Perfect. And please come to your near mark. Thanks, Tobias, and we'll grab it. So now we've collected the first 3 marks, and we're going to collect marks now with the CineRT handset.
But before we do that, we need actually clear the internal marks. So for that, we have the 2 options. The one is the standard option. If you put your knob above the mark, it changes into clear and you can delete the mark. But there's also a second option. If you press and hold the mark, you get additional menu where you can select Hi-5, Focusbug, or all marks to delete multiple marks in parallel.
That's great. All right. Well, let's get the second set. And these are the external marks. And we do that in a number of different ways, but we're going to use the CineRT handset in tape mode. Basically, the handset becomes a tape measure. You're basically pulling the tape just as you would a tape, except there's no tape, which allows you to get marks fast and discreetly. So let's go get some marks. So we'll grab a first mark here, and when we do so, you'll notice that it appears on the Hi-5 digital scale automatically. And a second mark. And please move to your near mark. Thank you, Tobias. And there we go. We've got 3 marks. They all appear automatically on the digital scale. So you don't need to remember the marks. You don't need to write them in ink on your hand, which inevitably you get all over your face. And it's kind of degrading. So in this case, fast, efficient, the marks appear automatically, and that's collecting marks with the CineRT handset.
So next thing we got to show you is the field of view. For that, we set up the Hi-5 so that user button 6 is the field of view. And on the lower part of the display, you see that the horn is currently on extra wide, targeting me. And as soon as ARRI pushes the field of view,
you've got me on the default field of view setting. Default's 14 degrees, wide field is 24 degrees, and extra wide field is 36 degrees. And that's field of view.
So we've just explained the field of view, and now we have the exact same scene, but instead of field of view, we are using different sources. At that instant, we're using bugs. So I'm on bug number 1, and Laird is on bug number 2. We set up the Hi-5 that the source toggle is on user button number 9, and you can see on the lower part of the display that currently the bug number 1 is the active source. I put the bug back into my pocket, and as soon as ARRI presses source.
So you can have up to 4 active bugs at one time. You can monitor 2 simultaneously. And the great thing about bugs is you can put them on actors, but you can also put them on stand-ins. You can give them to your loader to assist in the collection of marks. Really, bugs are small, lightweight, concealable, and multi-purpose.
That's the bugs and sources.
So the next feature we're going to show you is crossover mode, which is kind of a source switching tool, where we would start on one source and at a user-defined distance switch to another. And in this case, we're going to use the bug on Tobias, and we're going to switch at a user-defined distance of 3 meters, which is our mid mark, to the rangefinder. And we're doing this because at distance, the bug in a pocket is absolutely fine. But as we get into a tighter shot, obviously, we want to be on the face. So in this case, we're going to engage crossover mode with button 6. And now Tobias can walk up. And at 3 meters, we switch from the bug to the rangefinder.
And that's crossover mode. So another cool thing to do with sources is the so-called 2x view mode. We set up the Hi-5 that on user button number 6, you can turn on and off 2x view. So when ARRI pushes this button, you can see that not only you have now the solid green arrow, but also an outlined blue arrow indicating Laird's position. In addition, we have set user button number 1 to do 2x view value toggle. So when ARRI pushes this button,
the numbers turn blue, and those numbers, they're me.
And that's 2x view. So the next feature we want to show you is limits and lockout. Limits and lockout is a rangefinder functionality, and you can find the settings in the Focusbug menu on the Hi-5. In this situation, we've set 2.4 meter as the near limit, so it will ignore everything before this distance. In addition, we also put user button number 7 as limit to turn on and off the limit functionality. So as soon as ARRI hits limit, it will ignore me
and grab me. So in addition to holding overs, you can use limits to ignore foreground elements, crosses, anything that's happening in front of the target that you want to see. Additionally, we have something called lockout. And lockout's where you isolate a portion of your range, say in the instance of a street sign or a fence. In this case, you can set a near lockout point before the fence and a far lockout point on the opposite side of the fence. And now you have access to your full range on either side of the object that's in the lockout, which is completely ignored.
And that's it. So the last feature we want to show you is focus tracking. You have the traditional way to use focus tracking where you need to press and hold the button, and we have the new way where you can do focus tracking toggle. In this instance, we set up the Hi-5 that on user button number 3, you can toggle on and off focus tracking. So ARRI, if you please roll the camera and turn focus tracking on. As you can see, you get this nice yellow indication that focus tracking is on and the focus following me.
So focus tracking has typically been used to pull to your slate without having to adjust your focus knob value. You can also toggle it on for long setups where you don't want to be pulling focus, or use it as a panic button. I think you guys know what I mean.
And that's actually the end of our Tech Talk. Thanks ARRI for being with us, and thanks for watching.